the offseason, we're pretty deep into it. There's still some moves to be made. Colin Sexton was a guy averaging 24 a game on pretty good efficiency a year ago. He hasn't been signed. Carmelo Anthony, there's a lot of role players like him that are high profile names. There's young guys. Even Donovan Mitchell's in the trade block. You give the Utah 8 first round picks and some young players. I think he's going to New York. But we're done talking about Donovan. We've talked
Eight
about him
freaking
so
first. Oh my
much.
god! When I saw that,
That's
I was like, Jesus Christ, Rudy Gobert.
but those are
That trade just killed the trade market, dude.
late first round picks as well. If they're
Yeah, I know,
early, it'd
but
be
still,
three.
it's just it kills the freaking trade market because now it's just like nobody can get. It's hard to make a trade like that.
But does Donovan at this stage of his career at 25 have less trade value than Paul George at 29 and 30? Does he? I think
Yeah,
they have the
but
same amount of value.
but that's what I'm saying. But the trade block is been, it's like the free agency. When a player comes up, maybe they're not as good as the guy before them, but they're getting the more money because it's their time. I don't like that. I actually hate that because I think it should be like what you said, evaluated on talent level. Are you if Aaron Rodgers is up for his max extension and he gets this money, and now Jimmy Garoppolo's up, Jimmy Garoppolo should not be making more money than Aaron Rodgers just because it's his turn. It there's a hierarchy to this. There should be a mid level, and I know that's football, but it's the same concept for NBA.
So, speaking of off-season moves, I want to ask you guys what team has lost the most this offseason? What team has took the fattest L and they're headed in a direction that you don't like?
Oh,
Justin, you're worried about the Knicks. We're gonna start with you because I don't think the Knicks should be one of your teams. I
it's
don't
not the
know.
Knicks. It's not the Knicks.
Cool.
Because I don't want to talk about the Knicks.
Cool.
It's not the Knicks.
Cool.
It's
Good.
it's a loser franchise to me that I feel like has no direction, and that's the Wizards. I, I'm just like so baffled by them re-signing, giving Beal that extension. I feel like they should have traded Beal a long time ago. There's no way this team is competing for anything other than a bottom playoff seat if they're lucky with Beal making that kind of money. I mean, do you really believe in a trio of Porzingis, Kuzma, and Beal?
I
I,
think Kuzma was pretty good this last
I
season.
think Kuzma,
Absolutely
yeah,
not.
but I'm just saying, yeah, that
No.
no matter how good he was, that's not a team that's ready to make another step. I just feel like Beal's not a 1A championship guy, and maybe this might be a hot take, but I don't even know if he's a sufficient number two at the moment, given how deep talent is across the league. So I don't know. Washington should have had a bundle of assets from this Beal trade. So if they would have dealt him, I felt like they'd be in a better position.
How do you
Prime for the future,
how do you feel about that trade clause they gave him too?
bro. Like that's exactly what I'm saying. It's like they're the biggest losers. Well, yeah, you know who's the biggest winner? Beal, because he just cashed in. Man, he's there playing for his money. I mean, like I think about the Spurs a little bit. So this is what the Spurs did with Kawhi. They tried to win with DeRozan when they traded him, and I guess he's a decent Beal comparison, but man, they just make me laugh, man. The Spurs finally traded Murray. They got a bunch of first round picks from it. It's a fresh start. If Washington eventually came to that same conclusion with Beal, maybe they'd be on a better track. But at the moment, right now, Porzingis is making I don't know how much money, like $80 million or something.
Per year, it's like 27. And
But
when
yeah, okay. So per year, about $27. With that, you're paying Porzingis, you're paying Beal that money. There's just no success with that group. I'm sorry. The Wizards are my biggest losers, and I'd be surprised if there's anybody lower than that.
and real quick,
So,
you
oh,
sorry.
go ahead, John. No, go ahead,
Real
John. Real
quick,
quick.
you look at Orlando, it was a similar thing of Vucevic, where the difference was Orlando sucked, which is why them going for that eighth seed was a little bit exciting for the fans because they promised them to be back in the playoffs.
Mhm.
Washington, on the other hand, made the playoffs almost year in and year out with John Wall and Brad. And that was one of the most fun backcourts duos, one of the best times in the franchise history. But when you're a team that, unlike Orlando, has had the success, you've been to the playoffs, the fans have seen it, they've been able to feel it, but you didn't make it to the conference finals. In fact, you haven't won 50 games, I said this before, in over 45 years. You got to look at the analog. Indiana was in a similar position. They say, you know what, we're doing Sabonis. We're going to build around Halliburton. And they got an owner who's older. He wants to win now.
Mhm.
Orlando, they promised the fans they were going to win. It fell apart with Vucevic. They said, look, guys, we're going to do this all over again. We know we said the rebuild would be over in 4 years, and we're actually rebuilding again. You have to do what's best for your franchise. The cute little BS of, yay, we're keeping Bradley Beal. It's going to be so much fun winning 37 games every year. What are you doing? It's the most pathetic thing in pro sports, honestly. When you have your owner go from being like, we're going to compete for a title to we're going to compete for a playoff spot, even though we've done this the last 7 years. And keep in mind, this team hasn't made the playoffs since 2018, 2019. You've been a lottery team, and they're not giving themselves an actual bite at the apple, you know? Because with Bradley, you're not going to be one of the worst teams unless he's dealing with injuries the way he was last season. But then you bring in Porzingis, another good player who's dealing with injuries. The collective of those two playing together, you're not going to have a top lottery pick unless you get super lucky. So you're not giving yourself a chance at butting at the apple to get a top 5 pick. And you look at how they got Wall, how they got Beal, Otto Porter. Sure, they had their misses and a Jan Vesely.
No.
But overall, like, you don't give yourself a chance to bet at the apple. You're failing your fans. And for any of the fans out there in Washington that are still supporting the team through this, I don't know why you're doing it, because this franchise should be ashamed of themselves. Maybe they try to move Beal on his current contract, but guess what? Since you gave him that little fruity trade clause, if he doesn't want to go to that place, you can't move him. And you would think after their GM and Tommy Shepard did a masterful job moving John Wall and Russell Westbrook, he would have prioritized that flexibility, right? And honestly, I think that $200 million contract would have been enough for Brad. The fact they also gave him a trade clause, they lose all that versatility in moving him.
Yep.
And now they're doing the same BS where they're trying to build around him, move on while he's got value, because this rebuild is inevitable. And the longer you delay it, the more you fail your fans. And this is the exact example of how you don't run a sports franchise. You look right in Washington, D.C.
So, for my biggest, and I just want to say I do agree with you guys. Washington has been a loser since John Wall got injured and couldn't play for a long time. And I agree that backcourt was just electric. I mean, John Wall and Bradley Beal, and I do hold a little bit. I'm not a Washington fan, but I do kind of slight KD. This is just a little tangent. I'm going to go on for a second. For KD, when he left OKC and went to Golden State, I kind of was like, yo, KD, if you want to prove something, dude, go to your hometown Washington Wizards. Go play with John Wall and Bradley Beal. That's a big 3 right there.
The hardest coach to get him. The hired Scott
That's
Brooks just for him to do whatever he wanted there.
Yeah, go win a championship there. Don't go to a team that was already built. Go to your hometown team and win a championship for Washington. You know how much credit you would have got if you won a championship as the guy in Washington?
That was a
But
team. They were
yeah.
a piece away too. I don't want to cut you off, but like that Washington team, they're almost winning 50 games. And if you put KD in that mix, oh my God.
The battles
been a
between
61
them
team.
and the Cavaliers would have been incredible.
Incredible. Hell yeah.
But that's neither here nor there, right? My biggest loser is not a team. It's a player. And his name is Kyrie Irving. Because Kyrie Irving, for how smart he is, he made such a stupid decision. The guy wanted out of Brooklyn. The guy wanted to go to LA, or wants to go to LA with LeBron. From what all reports are saying, he wants to go to LA. Why did you accept your player option then? Decline it. Now the Lakers don't have to try and freaking make a Kyrie for Westbrook trade work, because it does not work. It doesn't compute. Even if you add the 27 first-round pick and the 29 first-round pick, that doesn't make any sense for the Lakers or the Nets. That's 5-7 years from now. LeBron's going to be retired by then. Kyrie will probably be retired by the time the 27 or 29th pick comes around. Kyrie should have declined that player option. Now he can sign a deal with the Lakers when the Lakers get rid of Westbrook, because all they would have had to do was find a sucker, and there's a sucker born every day, to take Westbrook's contract. They would have had to deal with him. Maybe they buy him out. Maybe they let him play for you, whatever. And now you get Kyrie on the Lakers. And you don't have to give anything up except for the guy that you want to get rid of. I just look at it and I say, what the hell was that? Like, why did you accept your player option?
How do you guys think Joseph Tsai, the Nets owner, feels about Kyrie?
Oh, he hates
He's
him.
probably sick and tired of him. He's probably like, God, just
He hates him, bro.
why are we? Why?
From all the reports, he's like, Tsai is like very much a guy that wants reliability in his business, and when the product isn't even going to show, he's just like, get this guy off my team. I don't care if we go back to the D'Angelo Russell days. I've had enough of paying this dude. And I guess Kyrie wants some of that money back because he lost a lot last year, not playing in home games or games at all to start the first 2 months. So, hey, go get that bag. But
Yeah, get the
Brooklyn doesn't
bag.
want you, And if Brooklyn doesn't want you, I mean, Lakers are the only team that does.
Mm-hmm.
He's not won a championship in Brooklyn. Just like the Suns, that championship window's closed. I think, honestly, even though they got T.J. Warren and Royce O'Neal, I think with Steve Nash, there's
It's
not
too many
enough to say in that
problems.
Eastern Conference that they're going to actually be able to win 3 playoff series. You got Boston, you got Philadelphia, Milwaukee,
Miami.
still got Miami, still have Atlanta, who have maybe the best backcourt in the conference. Chicago will be healthy. Cleveland will be healthy. I think Cleveland's a better team than Brooklyn with how they're going to grow. A lot of people won't agree with that, but I'm pretty high on Darius and Evan Mobley. My biggest offseason loser, first off, obviously, Wizards, they actually had a good, like, in terms of team building, Monte Morris they picked up for KCP. I thought that was a really good move. They were so stacked at the wing positions, all of the wings they've drafted in Denny Avila, Rui Hachimura, Corey Kispert, there wasn't enough minutes for all those guys. You have Kyle Kuzma in the mix. So by trading KCP, you open up minutes for all those lottery picks. Monte Morris is a starting point guard to me. I think he's one of the 30 best. He's really good. Shot making, not can turn over the ball, disciplined, and knows his role. And then you add in Will Barton. I forgot they have him. Oh, never mind. That blows up my last point because I forgot. Will Barton's a wing player. That guess what? Will be playing more than KCP. So by trading KCP, you bring in another wing player that's going to take away minutes from all of those lottery picks. And I look at Denny Avila. Do you guys think there's any star potential? Because I just think he's a fine role player.
That's it. I feel like that's a ceiling.
I'm sorry, I missed the name.
Denny Avila. He's like, he's solid. I think he's a very good defender, high IQ, decent passer. He can't shoot or score. I look at Rui Hachimura. He reminds me of Jabari Parker. Corey Kispert, little Joe Harris. So if you got Joe Harris, Jabari Parker, and let's say Nick Batum, and then Johnny Davis, he came in summer league and stunk it up. I think Davis will be a tough shot-making guard that relies on mid-range, but he has to become a better three-point shooter. The Wizards' young core is not good enough, and there's not enough support around your big three or your big four with Kuzma. And like Barton's a good player. He's fine. He's not going to do anything in the playoffs. He's going to stink it up probably. They're just doing everything wrong. I think their GM's really good at his job. Like I said, he traded 2 of the worst contracts in basketball, but you're not getting lottery picks. You haven't drafted well either. This is a team that could have drafted Tyrese Halliburton. They could have. We talk about the Suns not taking him. Denny Avila, that's just another wing player. Like, they didn't need that. So
are you saying the Wizards are your biggest loser with me?
I think they are the biggest loser in the Eastern Conference. The biggest loser in the Western Conference is another team that I thought had a really good offseason. There's 2 actually got. Portland's number 1, and number 2 is Phoenix. The Suns, they brought in from Minnesota, Josh Okogie. They brought in from Golden State, Damian Lee. They added end of the reserve players, but they have no draft picks coming in, no undrafted free agents. DeAndre Ayton's relationship may be fractured with Monty Williams. We won't really know until the season starts. And while Chris Paul's only going to be a year older, you didn't get better as a team. Jay Crowder's on an expiring contract. There's that Landry Shamet extension. He doesn't really provide anything. You need a backup point guard. You don't have that. The Suns, they're just regressing when the rest of the league is getting better. I look at the moves Denver made, getting KCP. He fits in perfectly. Bruce Brown's another wing player that can defend if it's an awesome. They had an awesome offseason. You know they're going to be healthy. Same with the Warriors, the Clippers. The Suns, they're only getting worse and falling down the standings. That's one of my teams. Portland made some pretty good moves. That's the team I was talking about. Jeremy Grant's a very good wing. Josh Hart, second year at the team. They have young players. Of course, you add in what's his face. Gary Payton the second. My apologies to call him what's his face from Oregon State. I think those are really good moves, but that's not a playoff team. Dame doesn't have the support of a number two. His second best teammate's Anthony Simons. That's CJ McCollum and him 2.0. You got a better defense, but you only got one big man. This is a team trying to be Golden State. Chauncey Billups wants to play an aggressive style defense, and I think with the players they added, they can play very aggressive. And honestly, I think they'll be a top 12 or top 15 defense, even with that small backcourt. They'll be good enough. But I say this is a playing team. They're not going to be a top 6 seed. And when I look at them having to win 2 games against a squad like Memphis or the Suns will be in the play-in probably, because keep in mind, Jaren Jackson is going to miss the start of the season. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs, and they're in the situation where they want to pay a luxury tax. But if you're not making the postseason and you're spending all this money on a team that's not good, and you're going to be at the end of the lottery, you got to move Damian Lillard soon. I think for the franchise, as cool as it is to have that Mr. Trailblazer at the end of his career, they're really in no man's land, just like the Wizards. The difference is they're in a better position. They've actually made the conference finals. They've won 50 games, and there's a little bit more hope of Dame being an actual All-NBA player, unlike Bradley Beal, that maybe they can make the playoffs and be competitive with a player that's much better.